Hey there, and welcome to the Reckless Garden. My name is Anna. This is a small backyard garden, and today I wanted to talk about 6 tips for growing and planting a garden in a small space. So just because you have a tiny little backyard like this doesn't mean that you can't produce a lot of food and a lot of flowers. So my garden is about 20 feet by 16. There's a big stone patio in the middle. And so it's not a whole lot of growing space, but with some of these little tricks, I've actually been able to really maximize how much we produce here. And it's just super fun to garden in this space. So let's start with tip number 1. Learn about your pests. So I have learned that beans always get covered with spider mites. I just cannot grow beans in this garden successfully. The plants get absolutely destroyed. And so because I have such a small space, it's just not worth it to me to grow those beans. I can get them at the farmer's market or the grocery store, but I'd rather save space for plants that do really well and aren't bothered by the pests. So salvia flowers, eggplants really aren't too bothered by pests. So I would rather use my small space for those things that are going to grow well and just buy the other things that I need from the store and not worry about it. Now there are a couple exceptions. I absolutely love dahlias, so do the spider mites, but I kind of know that it's worth it to me to put in the care that I'm going to have to. It's going to be a little bit of extra work, but for those specific plants, I will take that effort. So all rules are meant to be broken, but in general, if there are plants that are just, you're constantly fighting pests on, they're just not working, maybe swap out that space and grow something that's going to be really happy and do really well. The next tip, which is such a huge one, is to use containers and trellises. I've got a trellis back there. I've got a ton of containers that I put on this patio, and it totally takes a space that you couldn't grow on and turns it into a space where you can grow. So a little sunny corner that has some cement, you can put a pot in there and grow whatever you want. It's really a great way to use your space. Window boxes that go off of patio railings, awesome way to grow in that kind of an area. If you're worried about the cost, because it can be kind of expensive to buy containers for those areas, I would definitely recommend looking into grow bags. They are much cheaper for the container. There's still going to be the cost of soil, which is definitely something, but that's a really easier way to get, especially like a big container. I have some big grow bags that I grow squash in. I've grown corn in them. Not corn necessarily to eat, more just for decorative purposes, but still super, super fun and definitely something to look into using. I also recommend companion planting. So if you have a small garden like this, you want to have both things, right? You want to have flowers and vegetables. It's totally possible. Just mix things together. So I will plant a tomato and I'll put nasturtiums under it, or even a super bells or a super tunia. You can mix a lot more things than you think. Just kind of look at the space requirements and the water requirements. But companion planting is such an amazing way to bring flowers into your vegetable gardening space so that it's both functional and it's pretty. If it's just your only backyard that you've got, you might as well have both things, and it really, really is possible. There are some companions that are tried and true. Tomatoes and basil, right? That's a classic one. But you'd be surprised, and you should definitely play around with it. There are a lot of things that you can combine that you might not think of. I had verbenas, super bells, and cucumbers growing in one container this year, and they all did really well and we're super happy. So definitely something to think about. Use containers, grow vertically on trellises. You can grow a squash vertically up a trellis, like up a tomato cage. You can grow vining crops like small pumpkins or even some vining squashes, cucumbers, those kind of things up a trellis, and that'll save space in your small garden as well. Next, I would say prioritize the plants that you really want. A lot of people will give you the advice to grow plants that you really want to eat. If you hate eating eggplant, don't grow eggplant. And I think that's great advice. I definitely think that grow the things that you know you want. If you've got limited space, focus on the things that you like to eat. I would also add to that, focus on things that you're interested in. So I really wanted to grow eggplants last year. I'd never really grown them. I was super interested. So I gave my eggplants one of these beds. It's actually this bed right here. It's like my prime bed. If you have a small garden, you know there's like your prime spots that are your best growing areas. I gave that to the plant that I was interested in growing, and it was super fun. I really enjoyed it, and definitely worth using my space for that. Another tip is to leave space for impulse buys. If you're like me and you like to go to the garden center and you like to shop for plants, you're going to pick out things that inspire you. Maybe inspired buys instead of impulse buys is a better word. You're going to leave with plants that you didn't expect to have. And so just make space in your plan that there's going to be an impulse buy that's going to go there. That way you don't end up with overcrowding or not having room to get the plants that really speak to you and you're really interested in. So definitely put it into your garden plan. I do in my small garden, impulse buy section, garden center fund section, whatever you want to call it. Definitely plan on that. And then also plan on your plant care. So some plants, if you prune them and are willing to put in the time and take, the special care requirements for them, you can grow them in a smaller space. Peppers you can prune, tomatoes you can prune, and you can prune them so that they fit into a smaller area, and that can really help to maximize a garden air space. You can fit so many more things in if you're willing to do the pruning and a little bit of extra work to make them fit. So I definitely recommend that you try some size control on some of those plants that you really want to have. Anyways, those are my tips for growing in a small garden space. I hope you go out and get your small gardens going. Let me know in the comments what size garden you have. If you have a big garden, maybe these tips were still helpful for a small space that you're thinking about growing in. But yeah, let me know what size your garden is, and I will talk to you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.